High-impact communication. Terms and conditions. Legal notice. The publisher has strived to be as accurate and complete as possible in the creation of this report, notwithstanding the fact that he does not warrant or represent at any time that the contents within are accurate due to the rapidly changing nature of the Internet. While all attempts have been made to verify information provided in this publication, the publisher assumes no responsibility for errors, omissions, or contrary interpretation of the subject matter herein. Any perceived slights of specific persons, peoples, or organizations are unintentional. In practical advice books, like anything else in life, there are no guarantees of income made. Readers are cautioned to rely on their own judgment about their individual circumstances to act accordingly. This book is not intended for use as a source of legal, business, accounting, or financial advice. All readers are advised to seek services of competent professionals in legal, business, accounting, and finance fields. You are encouraged to print this book for easy reading. Table of Contents. Foreword. Chapter 1. Communication Basics. Chapter 2. You must first understand yourself and your message. Chapter 3. Learn to use terms that invoke emotions. Chapter 4. Pay attention to body language. Chapter 5. Learn to use terms that spark interest. Chapter 6. The benefits of presenting your message in 1 minute. Wrapping up. Forward. Communication is an important form of getting information across to the other party. However, good, quick and effective deliverance is just as important, as the attention span of most people today is very short, and this is especially so if the material being communicated is rather boring. Get all the info you need here. High-impact communication tips on getting your strongest message across in 1 minute. Chapter 1. Communication Basics. Synopsis. Since our minds are crammed with so much of information, there is very little time or space to indulge in frivolous and irrelevant information, thus the need to be precise and quick when communicating. With hectic schedules and distractions to contend with, it is often quite hard to take the time to stop and pay attention to what is being communicated. The basics. The following are some recommendations on how to ensure the information being communicated is done so in the shortest possible time frame, and yet fully understood by the receiving party. Perhaps the most effective way of communicating information and having it understood is to ensure there is constant eye contact with the recipient throughout the length of the communication session. This should also be done in a precise and quick time frame where the information is presented as concisely as possible. Getting the recipient to summarize and repeat what has been communicated is also another method of ensuring the information is both heard and understood. This is also another way to ensure the content of the information stays the same as it was presented and there are no additions or distortions to the content. The language design and phrasing should also be in line with the recipient's capability and understating levels. Talking to someone who is not savvy in the technical jargon used will not only be a waste of time and effort, but it would also seem pretentious to those around. This type of communication would not be effective at all. Chapter 2. You must first understand yourself and your message. Synopsis. Problems usually arise when information dispersed is not really understood by the individual doing the disbursement exercise. This has a lot of negative connotations to it, as the said information content may not be dispersed as it was first designed to represent. Herein lies the problem of good communication that is faced by any level in society, which more often than not, results miscommunication or misinterpretation of the said information. Understanding. There are 3 main components of communication, which affects the overall understanding of what is being communicated. These would include the verbal, nonverbal, and paraverbal platforms used. The following are some tips on how to ensure the information is first thoroughly understood by the presenter before it is presented to others. By understanding the content of the message intended to be shared with others, the individual presenting the message will ideally utilize either all 3 of the communication's components, or at the very least 2 components at any given time. This will allow the recipient of the message the opportunity to fully grasp both the content and its impact meant to be made through the communication session. When the content of the message is completely understood by the individual, he or she will be able to design or choose the suitable verbal, paraverbal, or nonverbal messaging style that would effectively get the message across to the receiving party. Without this initial understanding factor, the individual would be hard-pressed to make the presentation of the message impactful enough to get the desired results. Another important effect that is desired from thoroughly understanding the message content before presenting it is that the consistency in the message itself will be presented in a way that is less confusing and inconsistent according to the perception of the recipient. Chapter 3. Learn to use terms that invoke emotion. Synopsis. For most, the effective impacts desired out of a communicating exercise comes from the importance of being able to invoke some level of emotion both from the presenter and the listener. If the communication is well designed, with this important aspect dominantly featured, then the eventual results of the said communication exercise will bring forth the desired effects. Emotions. Learning how to identify and include terms in the speech pattern and body language will be very useful when trying to focus in invoking some sort of emotion from all involved. Using appropriate trigger words and phrases is one way of achieving this emotional impact. Painting a picture with the choice of words used is the main idea behind the emotion-invoking communication technique. This is very important for the presenter who is focused on making the desired impact on the listener in order to get the results intended. However, it should be also noted that the use of invoking emotions can be something that causes the opposite of the intended impact meant. Therefore, it is very important to identify beforehand the emotions that are being sought after, through the communication exercise, so that the words chosen will rightly describe the actual content of the message intended to be divulged. The following are some recommendations as to the best use of words that will ideally invoke emotions. Using descriptive words and visual words to make it easy for the listener to see the picture in the mind's eye would be one way of invoking the desired emotions. Using smiles and metaphors is another effective way of invoking the desired emotions into the content of the message to make it more impactful. There are also actual words that can be used to invoke strong emotions both in the presentation material and in the overall content intention. Chapter 4. Pay attention to body language. Synopsis. Having the general gist of the message being lost in translation is especially possible when the body language used does not in any way reflect the actual message content intended for the listener. Therefore, it is very important to ensure the appropriate body language is chosen and used to match whatever is being communicated. This is one of the most effective ways of reinforcing the message being communicated. What are they saying? Whether it is for the intention of making a good first impression or for the intention of making a powerful and impacting presentation, the body language that accompanies the communication has to be spot on. Otherwise, the desired results will most certainly not be achieved. Factors such as posture, firm handshakes, eye contact, fidgeting, animated movements, sitting positions, voice levels are all different body language tools that deserve a level of attention to ensure the correct use is parallel to the intended message. Paying attention to the body language being shown by the listener will also help the individual identify the level of interest the listener has towards what is being communicated. This is especially useful, as it can help the communicator change topic, content, style or words and incorporate the ideal and appropriate body language movements to be used to attract the possible waning attention or even enhance the interested attention of the listener. Studying the body language is an important first-hand indicator as to how well the message is being received and understood. This is definitely an advantage to be fine-tuned, as it is important to ensure any communication exercise achieves the desired results it was first designed to reach. A large number of people whose careers depend on being able to identify the other party's reactions through the body language reading will attest to the importance and effectiveness of its ability to enhance communications. Chapter 5. Learn to use terms that spark interest. Synopsis. Any tools that can be used to enhance the communication exercise are definite exploring for its merits. Besides the more common recommendations such as body language and vocal tones, there is another equally interesting way to create optimum interest in the subject being communicated. This is the art of incorporating little nuggets of information that can spark the interest of the listener. Get attention. When it comes to perking the interest of the listener, the most common way to spark interest is to name drop. This has always been a crowd puller because by nature most people are rather inquisitive and want to know all about what others are doing or thinking. Therefore, by name dropping, the conversation now becomes more interesting and thus worth the time and effort to indulge in. Giving out information that is attention-grabbing is also another form of sparking the interest of the listener through the communication exercise. Using facts and figures that create or imply shocking information that is little known will add to the excitement levels of the communication content, thus encouraging and sparking even more interest. Another way to help spark interest is to be well informed in the subject matter that is being discussed. People are often attracted to individuals who are well informed on the topic of discussion. Projecting a seemingly commanding presence by the tone of voice and the topic chosen for discussion is also another way to spark interest from those around. Presentations that are made with voice tones and body language that personifies confidence will ideally create a resonance that attracts interest. Using terms that are positive and encourage interaction is always a welcomed way to ensure participation, and this is often the ingredient that encourages interest. Most people enjoy some form of interactive conversations as it allows them to ask questions and engage with others. Chapter 6. The benefits of presenting your message in 1-minute synopsis. The intended purpose of all communication is to get a specific message across to the other party with the assurance that the intended message is then received and understood. However, with this intention in mind, the individual should also be aware that getting the information across in a concise manner would be more beneficial than taking an endless time frame to do so. The advantage is most people don't have the time of the interest to stop and pay attention to what is being said. Therefore, when the opportunity presents itself, making the most of it efficiently and accurately is the best thing to do. This is especially so for those in the marketing and sales line. Communicating with potential customers is the only way to garner the interest and to make a sale. Therefore, learning to fine-tune the skill of communication with precision is important. Putting some serious thought into the opening sentence when the opportunity arises should be practiced as often as possible. The information and the style of the opening sentence is the only opportunity the presenter will be able to capitalize on, and ensure the attention of the listener is captured and held. If the opening line in the conversation is not attention-grabbing, then retaining the attention of the listener for a longer period will be almost impossible. Wrapping up, besides the intention of attracting and holding the listener's attention, another benefit of a concise communication exercise is that the individual will be able to speak factually and not waste time with nonsensical remarks. Most listeners appreciate communication styles that are rich with information and facts. Most attention-grabbing communicative information focuses on these important elements, and this is especially prevalent in the advertising line where time is of the essence. Thank you for watching my video. See you again.